Somewhere out there is an outboard motor that sold for more than a brand new Porsche 911, and the buyers lined up anyway. There's one with a BMW engine lying on its side, spinning its propeller with a belt instead of gears. One that runs on a fuel your marina doesn't sell. One the industry filed under impossible for decades, until somebody built it. And one so powerful, its own maker won't put it on sale. 5 engines that break every rule this industry considered permanent. What an outboard can cost, how it can be built, what it can burn, how much power a transom can hold. By the laws of engineering economics, none of them should exist. All 5 do. And in 2026, every one of these bets is being settled in ways nobody predicted. Some of these stories end well. At least one doesn't. One thing before we start, and then I won't mention it again. Everything I know about what boat repairs should really cost, the fair price of every common job, the warning signs, the tricks some shops use to pad a bill, is in a book called the Outboard Repair Defense Guide. It's $15, first link below. If it saves you from one padded quote, it's paid for itself many times over. That's all. Now, the countdown. The countdown starts in Germantown, Wisconsin, in 2010, where a man named Rick Davis and his 2 sons decided the outboard industry had been thinking too small. Their idea sounded like a bar bet. Take General Motors' supercharged 6.2-liter LSA, the V8 made famous in Cadillac's fastest sedans, and hang it on a transom. Lay the engine down horizontally, run it through a ZF Marine transmission with wet disc clutches, seal it behind a closed cooling system, and wrap it in a cowling the customer could customize like a yacht interior. The result made 627 horsepower at a moment when the industry's giants sold nothing close. It was the most powerful outboard the world had seen. The price matched the ambition, $130,000 to over $150,000 for a single engine. The Porsche from the top of this video, and production reportedly topped out at 200 units a year. By every rule of the volume-driven outboard business, that's a company that cannot survive. Except the rule was wrong. The buyers existed, wealthy owners of big center consoles who wanted maximum power and didn't ask prices, exactly the clientele nobody believed was there. 7 Marine ran for the better part of a decade, expanded to 3 models, 527, 577, 627. And in 2017 came the ultimate validation. Volvo, one of the world's engineering giants, took majority ownership and moved production to Tennessee. Then the giant killed it. Effective January 1st, 2021, Volvo Penta discontinued 7 Marine, citing the Volvo Group's net zero by 2050 commitment, with production phased out once existing demand was met. The engine didn't fail. It was retired by climate policy. Mid-success, with warranty and parts support continuing to this day. And on their way out, the Davis family made a claim the market has spent 5 years making look prophetic. That 7 Marine helped launch the industry's wave of large outboards. Look at any transom wearing a 500 or 600 horsepower badge today, Mercury's V12 included, and you're looking at the market 7 proved before dying for reasons that had nothing to do with boats. One more detail. For viewers of our Italian video, 7 Marine's drive units came from Salva's factory in Toronto. Even the impossible American outboard had the quiet European workshop inside it. The horizontal V8 died in Tennessee then. But the layout didn't die at all. It moved to Sweden and bolted itself to a BMW. Number 4 is the engine that looked at a century of outboard designs and rejected all of it. Every outboard you've ever seen stands its engine upright, runs a shaft down the leg, and turns the power through bevel gears in the lower unit. The Swedish company Oaks Marine asked why, and built the opposite. Its flagship takes BMW's 3-liter twin-turbo diesel straight 6, the engine from Munich's most expensive sedans, and lays it down flat. The lower unit contains no gears at all. Power reaches the propeller through a carbon fiber belt, fed by a gearbox that keeps forward and reverse engaged at all times. So the dock shifting that chews up conventional lower units has nothing left to chew. An automotive diesel, sideways, driving a propeller with a belt. It sounds like a machine from a fever dream. Yet around 5,000 are on the water, and 9 out of every 10 went to people who boat for a living. That last number is why it exists. Recreational buyers never asked for this engine. Commercial operators did the arithmetic and couldn't ignore it. One charter operator's published estimate put his fuel savings at $500,000 over 4 years. And math like that ends conversations at working docks. Harbor pilots, patrol fleet, government agencies. The Oaks became the professional's contrarian choice. The outboard bought on a spreadsheet instead of a brochure. Then came 2026, and the reason this segment sounds different from the last one. In July, Oaks published a quarterly report showing engine sales down 90%. 5 million kronor against nearly 49 a year earlier, with spare parts suddenly making up most of what the company sold. A credit line matures no later than the 1st of December. This is the bet from our hook that's collapsing in public. The engineering never failed. The government buyer it depends on froze their orders. And a small company can't outwait a frozen order book forever. And yet, one buyer just validated the whole idea. General Motors Marine Division placed an order this summer, and there's not a single engine in it. GM is paying to study Oaks' patented gearless lower leg. The engine business is fighting for its life, while one of the world's biggest car makers examines its ideas. Whatever happens by December, the belt drive has already outlived the balance sheet. Oaks gambled a company on borrowed automotive genius. The next engine on the countdown gambled a decade on building the impossible from a blank sheet. Number 3. Number 3 carries the oldest impossibility on this list. Because for most of a century, the high-horsepower diesel outboard was the industry's favorite example of a contradiction. Diesel means compression, enormous cylinder pressures that demand heavy, rigid blocks. And heavy is the one thing a transom cannot forgive. Every attempt to marry serious power to that weight ended the same way. Too much mass for too little output. An engine that defeated its own purpose. The consensus hardened into something close to law. Then a British company called Cox Marine spent a decade and a fortune breaking it. From a blank sheet. Their CX-0300 is a 4.4-liter twin turbocharged V8 diesel designed as an outboard from its first drawing, with every part purpose drawn for marine use. And it took 7 years just to travel from first firing to production. Nobody adapts their way to this engine. It has to be invented whole. What the invention delivers is torque in quantities gasoline outboards don't discuss. Over 1,000 Newton meters at 2,600 RPM. Enough to put a 7,000-pound boat on plane from engine speeds where gasoline rivals are still clearing their throat. And the price of the achievement is equally blunt. A reported $50,000, a couple hundred pounds of extra weight, and a machine that fundamentally dislikes going slowly. So who needed the impossible badly enough to fund it? The answer wears a uniform. Navies and military fleets run on single fuel doctrine. Gasoline's vapors are an explosion risk a warship won't carry. So if a patrol boat wants an outboard, that outboard must burn diesel. For a specific well-funded buyer, Cox's engine was the only option the rulebook allows. Which is exactly where 2026 finds the company. This is the bet from our hook that found the buyer it was always best suited for. Cox has pivoted hard toward commercial and government work. Its engine now powers unmanned vessels like the Sea Archer, and a more powerful 350 version is rolling out. The impossible diesel never conquered the marina. It conquered the dockyard instead. Every engine so far fought weight, cost, or a century of design habit. The next one fights something stranger. The engine runs, and you still can't buy its fuel. Number 2 is the strangest bet on this list because the machine works. It's the world around it that isn't ready. In February 2024 at the Miami Boat Show, Yamaha unveiled the first hydrogen combustion outboard the recreational industry had ever seen. A V8 derived from its flagship XTO offshore, the 5.6-liter that makes 450 horsepower on gasoline. Feed the same displacement hydrogen instead and you get somewhat less power, because hydrogen carries less energy per liter. But you also get an exhaust made of water. That's the entire pitch. A big block offshore outboard whose only combustion byproducts is the thing boats float on. The catch arrives before the engine even starts, and it's the reason this segment exists. The fuel. hydrogen stores as compressed gas at over 5,000 psi, and the tanks that hold it are enormous. When Yamaha's partners built the test boat, Roush Cleantech engineering the fuel system, Regulator Marine rebuilding a 26-foot hull around it. The tanks evicted the fish boxes, the forward storage, and the marine head, a fishing boat that surrendered its fishing storage to its own fuel. And when the moment came for the first fill-up, in July 2024, there was no dock to pull up to. The boat traveled by transporter to a hydrogen station in Flint, Michigan. The world's first hydrogen outboard needed a truck to reach its own fuel. So why build an engine the infrastructure can't feed? Because Yamaha is buying insurance against the future. The company has committed to carbon-neutral operations by 2035 and carbon-neutral products by 2050. And its hydrogen know-how flows in from its automotive and motorcycle work, where the company has been developing hydrogen combustion for some time. If regulations one day close the door on gasoline, the manufacturer already holding a working alternative enters the decade that follows in front. The H2 is less a product than a position. As of 2026, that position sits exactly where you'd expect. Still a prototype, in what Yamaha calls an optimization phase, with the company guarded about details and fresh reporting this summer, placing it years from any showroom. While the marina fuel problem remains unsolved, this is the bat from our hook still sealed in its prototype phase, the one with no settlement date at all. Which leaves one engine, the most powerful outboard ever shown in public, from the king of the industry. And the wildest part is that you cannot buy it. Number 1 is the simplest impossibility on the list because it's just arithmetic. 808 horsepower from an outboard motor. When 7 Marines 627 died in 2021, it held the crown as the most powerful outboard ever built. In January 2026, Mercury walked past that number like it wasn't there, unveiling an 808 horsepower concept at CES, the Las Vegas Electronics Show, of all places, before bringing it to Miami a month later. The machine is built on the same V12 block as Mercury's 600 horsepower Verado, and the name itself is the technical tell. Squeezing another 200 horsepower from that block points to forced induction, a supercharged evolution of an engine already on the water. And then Mercury did the last thing anyone expected with the most powerful outboard ever shown. Nothing. No price, no production date, no way to place an order. The 808 exists, runs, and travels to shows, and you cannot buy it. So why build a monster you won't sell? Because the 808 is a message and the recipients aren't boaters. On an earnings call in April, Mercury's parents confirmed 5 new engine platforms in development at once, reaching above the biggest engines it currently builds, with the factories already paid for, and in the CEO's words, fully capacitized. The same executive explained where the growth comes from. Mercury's big V engines aren't just beating other outboards anymore. They're taking sales from diesel inboards. In boats, outboards were never supposed to power. Seen in that light, the 808 stops being a product tease. Past power ceilings described what a transom could hold. This one described Mercury's appetite. The concept is the border post, planted in public, 200 horsepower past the current frontier. Which is why number 1 sits in a waiting room rather than a showroom. The pipeline is funded, the plants are ready, the concept is proven on stage, and at the time of recording, Mercury had announced no price, no date, and no name for what comes next. The most powerful outboard ever displayed is a promise the industry is still waiting to see kept. Whenever Mercury keeps it, you'll hear about it first. 5 bets, time to count the winnings. So count them. 7 Marine, dead and vindicated by every big engine that followed it. Oaks, collapsing in the market while a carmaker pays to study its ideas. Cox, alive because navies needed what Marines didn't. The H2, waiting on the world that doesn't sell its fuel yet. And in 1808, waiting on nothing but its own maker's timing. 5 impossible machines. And notice what none of them died of. Impossibility. The engineering worked in every single case. What decided their fates was policy, procurement, doctrine, infrastructure, and strategy. Everything except the metal. The lesson hiding in this countdown is the one this industry teaches over and over. The machines are never the problem. Bets like these get settled by markets, ministries, and boardrooms, never by physics. And that's exactly why the list won't stay at 5. Mercury has 4 more platforms in development it hasn't shown. A British billionaire's diesel is on its launch runway. Chinese manufacturers are climbing into horsepower classes nobody expected them to reach. Somewhere right now, an engineer will be sketching out the next engine that shouldn't exist. And when it does, this channel will be covering it. Subscribe if you want to be here when it does.